Ripple purchased several companies in 2025, and one of the most important companies had to be G Treasury. Why? Let me go through this information and open your eyes to this revolution in blockchain technology, how it is changing and transforming the traditional financial system, and everybody will be forced to rush in and adopt this technology or be left behind. Max Avery has a great post here. Ripple, since Ripple dropped a 1 billion G Treasury, a company that builds software that sells massive corporations where their cash is sitting across dozens of countries, it's clear that this next step is about takeover and legacy financial infrastructure. G Treasury connects to 13,000 banks. It processes about $12.5 trillion in payments every year. Volvo uses it, Subway uses it, over 1,000 companies in 160 countries trust it to manage their money. So why does blockchain company want this? Here's the problem Ripple sees. A corporate treasurer with cash scattered across 30 countries can't get a clear picture of what's where without waiting, moving that cash, or even worse, a wire from the US to Asia can take 3 to 5 days. Fees eat up 3 to 7% of that transfer. And throughout this process, nobody knows exactly where the money actually is. Blockchain settles in second, works 24/7, costs almost nothing, but you can't walk into a Fortune 500 company and tell the CFO to rebuild everything around blockchains. These organizations have compliance requirements and deeply embedded systems. G Treasury solves that. It's already installed. Finance teams trust it. Their workflows are built around it. Ripple didn't just buy the technology, they also bought the relationships and embedded access. The smart part is that Ripple isn't forcing anyone to abandon traditional banking. G Treasury will still connect to Swift and ACH, but now it also connects to blockchain rails. Treasurers can choose based on the situation. Routine domestic payments can use traditional banking if they want, but urgent international payments use the blockchain option. Same interface, multiple rails, and with blockchain benefits, it makes sense to move transactions will start to make use of that option. This deal makes more sense when you see what else Ripple has been acquiring. This isn't just one purchase, but really part of a coordinated strategy. Medico came first when they bought it in May 2023 for $250 million. They build institutional custody where large institutions can store digital assets securely. Banks won't move meaningful value through blockchain without somewhere safe to keep it. Hidden Road came next for $1.25 billion. Now it's called Ripple Prime. They clear over $3 trillion annually across FX, crypto, derivatives, and fixed incomes, and they're connected to 300 institutional clients who are moving billions per day. RLUSD, Ripple stablecoin, now works as collateral across Ripple Prime's products. Institutions can use stablecoin holdings to access leverage, trade derivatives, and earn yield on capital that would otherwise sit idle. Then there's Rail, August 2025 for $200 million, built for business-to-business stablecoin payments, high-frequency cross-border transactions, lets companies bypass correspondent banking entirely for certain transfers. Now imagine how this works as a unified system. A multinational uses G Treasury to see 50 million sitting idle in a European subsidiary and won't need it for 60 days. They move that cash via Rail's stablecoin infrastructure, settles in minutes instead of days. Cost savings could hit 60 to 90% compared to traditional wires, depending on the specifics. That capital gets deployed through Ripple Prime to earn yield while it's staying liquid. When the company needs the funds back, they're available immediately. Medico keeps everything secure and compliant throughout. One interface with multiple capabilities for traditional finance and digital assets working together. RLUSD is positioned very well and is fully reserved and backed by the US dollar deposits at BNY Mellon. For institutions worried about counterparty risk, that custodial relationship matters the most. The company is most likely to benefit, operate across multiple countries, deal with currencies exposures, and have significant cash positions that need active management. Traditional treasury ops often leave money trapped in transit or locked in accounts with limited utility. Ripple has spent over $2.7 billion assembling these pieces in 2025 alone. They've got the balance sheet, the regulatory approvals, and now the direct line into corporate finance. They're executing a plan and nobody is going to stop them. I added that part, but here's Brad Garlinghouse. It says, with today's close of Hidden Road, now Ripple Prime, Ripple has announced 5 major acquisitions in 2 years, and we went through all of those. And this is a big step and moment for Ripple. Humanoid robots are moving from science fiction into the real economy. And Humanoid Global Holdings Corp, ticker ROBO, is positioning itself as a key way to invest in that shift. According to Morgan Stanley, the humanoid robotics market, including supply chains and services, could reach over $5 trillion by 2050. Unit costs have already fallen by more than 40% since 2022, while labor costs keep rising, setting up a power adoption cycle. Humanoid Global is a publicly traded investment issuer focused on solely of humanoid robotics and embedded AI. The idea is simple. Most leading humanoid companies are still private, and Robo gives public market investors diversified exposure to this emerging value chain. The thesis is driven by a structural labor shortages and aging populations worldwide. Many studies suggest that a large share of today's jobs, especially in manufacturing, logistics, and healthcare, are well suited to humanoid integration as hardware, batteries, and AI models rapidly improve. Humanoid Global invests across enablers, hardware, and software. Companies like Agility Robotics, Aptronic on the humanoid side, Formic Technologies for robots as a service, automation, and how-to robot, a global marketplace for automation solutions. The team looks for strong IP, proven innovation, commercialization potential, and management with real operating track records. The company is actively managed, and advisory and technical committees benchmark its progress, tie funding to technical milestones, and open up their capital and customer networks to help portfolio companies scale. As of late November 2025, Humanoid Global just has over 51 million fully diluted shares outstanding, implying a market capitalization of roughly 59 million Canadian dollars at a share price of $1.15. There are no management or performance fees at the issuer level, so investors access this portfolio directly through the tickers ROBO, RBO, HF, and OXM1. If you believe in physical AI, robots that can sense, think, and act in the real world is the final invisible layer of the AI revolution. Humanoid Global aims to be an early, focused vehicle for that theme. Everything that you need to know will be in the description. Let's get back to the video. And I wanted to play this. This was from the CoinDesk interview with the CEO of G Treasury right after Ripple Swell.
Times for you guys. I think
I'm not gonna play the whole thing, just a little bit.
Get a sense of what G Treasury did and why it was. Let's just set the stage here. The XRP Army knows, but many others don't.
Yeah, so we are a software company that automates the treasury function. So think about us as being the control panel that a CFO or treasurer uses to manage their treasury function within large corporates.
And so that software right now is applying to what kind of assets, what kind of customers have you been serving, as to what degree of that is digital versus traditional treasury?
Yeah, so currently I would say the bulk of it is traditional, but we serve clients like American Airlines, Subway, Hartford Insurance, and we do that on a global basis. So all the regions we operate in. What is happening is some of that change is starting to happen, particularly in the last 6 months around the digital asset space.
And that function, that dashboard, is going to be everything from a little mini balance sheet management, assets, liabilities, and duration management, and things like this, short and long-term financing. Are we going down the right path? This is what that dashboard has on it.
Absolutely, and it starts with visibility for our client, right? Where is their cash? They typically have a complex banking network. Where does it sit? How do I make it related to my business? Then how do I project it? Then how do I move it? And then how do I see my debt sheet, and how does it all intermingle? All of that within one panel is what's happening.
So then you see Ripple coming in, and they make a prime services acquisition, and now they've acquired your company to have not only, I think, the software, but the access and the brain share. Looking very much more and more like a very diversified financial services company. How has it been so far, and what's the food like? And
food is exceptional.
What's the food like?
Yeah, so it's been a whirlwind. I signed the deal actually flying over Australia and talked to our customers there. It's an explosion of excitement. Mostly right now we're in the 8th stage of education, right? A lot of treasurers try to understand not what crypto or stable coins can do or what they are, but what does it enable them to do? And so this faster pace of money movement will allow for use cases that they've never thought about before.
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, what does this combination with Ripple actually mean for treasurers? Give us an example. You mentioned some companies that everyone knows about, American Airlines being one of them. What does that mean for the treasurer there?
So first off, it means means, one, that they can move money faster. I think one of the things that Ripple enables us to do is think about the piece of execution and bringing innovation. So all of a sudden, we orchestrate 13 trillion of payments on behalf of our clients. Now we will have an option to make a different type of payment. Whether our clients take it or not will depend, but also we manage 250 billion in the accounts that we monitor for our clients. And think about a time where they can now move money instantly and get yield. What we notice about those accounts is on nights and weekends, there's virtually no activity. So imagine a world now where Ripple brings a product that can make that money work. So when we talk about this deal, there's a lot to talk about, but one of the really interesting things is around making the money more active. And I think that benefits not just Ripple and G Treasury and our clients, but the entire ecosystem. All of a sudden, all the banks, everyone gets to participate in that activation of liquidity. And I think that's going to be one of the more interesting use cases that we start to look at.
Now remember, every other company that's competing against G Treasury is now at a loss. They don't have the same technology and their fees are much more expensive. So what does that do to every other company that is competing against the companies that have G Treasury as their workflow, right? It starts to add this level of competition and savings that other companies just won't be able to compete against unless they have similar technology. Now they could go to Ripple or they could choose a different source, but what I'm trying to get at here is it forces the world and all of these corporates to now move into using blockchain and stablecoins and bridge assets to be able to move value 24/7, 365, get rid of the Nostro Vostro system and really put XRP and other assets truly where they belong as utility assets and utility prices. Woohoo!
So clearly neither you nor your clients want to be yanked into a different world where they're suddenly find themselves in a, in an on-chain world. But you've mentioned some quick wins, right?
Yeah.
That help cast light on what benefits can happen right away. And then everything else as is, business as usual, happy customers. And then we see where we are in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think for us, one thing that's really important, we have 1,000 clients, all these larger size corporates, and we're going to give them optionality. This is within their banking network that they have today. They pick how they flow the money. We're just going to have another option for them if they so choose. So I think one of the great things about Ripple and the vision is they're patient about the adoption. And I think that's exactly what corporate treasurers want, is the patience, and they can test use cases that they're interested in, and we'll bring those use cases to them.
Everybody has competition. I'm sure your competitors must have lost some sleep after they saw what
There you go.
to your firm. Do you see other things happening with competing firms, or are you the first of many? And what are your thoughts there?
Tell me more.
Back to the night that we announced it. It was a nice night. Brad and I talked about
pretty good.
How did you celebrate?
I signed it flying over Australia, so it was an odd celebration.
When the plan landed, what did you do?
Come on, we got to get to the question.
I laughed that I got a latte, which is really good in Australia, flat white, so it was early in the morning.
Okay.
But what I would say is the competition is certainly strong, but we're the first in this space. So again, I think what is super exciting for me is the opportunity to gain market share. I think Ripple has a balance sheet that's unrivaled in our space. And then second, bring all this innovation, right? We have a chance, if you're running a company, the opportunity to acquire customers, make them ultra satisfied, and then think about leading in innovation. I mean, there's no more fun than you can have, right?
When you ask a question like that, you don't want to distract them from not answering that question, right? That was a really important question. Then she's all, well, what did you have to eat? Or what did you do to celebrate? Let him answer that really important question before you ask him another question, because now it kind of confuses or distracts from, what is the competition like? What was it like in that exact moment, right? I really wanted to know those details, and we kind of bypassed that because we got interrupted there. That was a frustrating point for me. All right, X Finance Bull says everyone's watching XRP price, but the real value is built in silence. Ripple's G Treasury connects XRP to the financial arteries of over 1,000 corporations, including Swift and full integration, $120 trillion backdoor. And then of course, we're talking about 7 key impacts of Ripple and G Treasury acquisition: liquidity management, strategic growth, market expansion, corporate treasury, institutional adoption, Swift integration, and XRP price surge, And there's so much information that we've gone through about all of this, guys. A lot of this is kind of repeating what I've already told you. This is kind of the flow and how all of this works. If you want to pause it and take a look at it, I didn't want to spend too much time on this. I've shown a lot of this before. And then here are all of the other companies that Ripple has purchased and bought and how all of this works together. If you want to take a look at this, please do. So it's going to be pretty incredible to see what this kind of graph looks like in 6 months or 12 months from now. I want to understand, who do you think, or what kind of company do you think Ripple will try to buy next? That is something that I've been trying to stay ahead of and trying to understand as well. And G Treasury will give you cash visibility, forecasting the payments, risks, debt, and investments. And you're also going to have all of these other types of stable coins on the XRP ledger that could be interchanged, and you'll have XRP as the middle bridge asset for the world's liquidity. And then of course supports 5,000 payout partners across 70 countries, end-to-end processes in less than a minute, 24/7 liquidity access, including weekends and holidays, and making operations seamless, access to 100 plus financial institutions, and Ripple's global partner network. And just a lot of people kind of reposting the same things. I do think there's not enough XRP out in the world right now. I think people are overestimating how much is actually available. And when you really go through these OTC desks and they buy up for the ETFs, I mean, you only have $1 billion worth of ETF demand right now. Bitcoin's well over 100 billion. So what happens when you have 10 billion and 50 billion, and then you get to 100 billion with XRP? There just won't be enough XRP, and the price will only be forced to go one way. When you have all of these inflows and you have limited supply, there really is nothing else that can change the fact that the price will rise. The real question is, how quickly and how long will it take? All right, guys, I'll leave it there. Have a good weekend. I hope you got some value. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Aloha.